So I'm having a sunny day. I'm proposing to my lady, so she won't go away. 'Cause I love you, girl. I need you like a fountain freeway water. I love ransom you, and I don't want to be left lonely. So glad you come my way, and now it feels so good to say, girl, your love is at the stay. And even though I've been hurt 1,000 times before, feel your love so strong, so deep, knocking on my door. And I know your love is very real. So hold me close, the lady. Let's make some memories. I got sunshine, so I'm having a sunny day. I'm proposing to my lady, so she won't go away. I got sunshine, so I'm having a sunny day. I'm proposing to my lady, so she won't go away.
WEFM, the new fresh sound.
WhatsApp us or call us at 457-9997. Activated Mornings on WEFM 99.9 is on now.
And we are back with you for another segment of our Activated Mornings program here on WEFM. Today being Monday morning, it means that in studio it is Dianna Cain, myself, Roleza Samuel, and Dr. Gerald Thompson. So, Doc, over to you. I know we started something.
Yes, I want to kind of continue on that theme. You know, the concept of a safe seat. When you look around the world, whether in England or let's say the United States, we've seen where the Republicans have dominated the southern part of the United States and part of the Northwest. And the Democrats dominated the Northeast and California, big, massive seats there. But you find there's a tendency that people will not spend money and campaign in seats that they consider as being a safe seat or a sure win for another entity. There's less resources put into that. And a concentration on what's considered as these marginal seats, you know, and that is true. You know, the monies that's spent in the United States is really spent on about 7-8 states, so to speak. Now, when it comes to St. Vincent and the Grenadines, which lies under the British system, each candidate is in a separate election. And at the end of the election, you look to see who else from your party has won. And if, in our case, you know, on the British system, but in the case of St. Vincent and Grenadines, if you are able to get at least 8 seats, you have won the government. And you then go further, those 8 persons go forward to select a prime minister from the persons would know who the prime minister is going to be, but that's the process, you know. The one person able to say, well, I have the support of these individuals who have been elected in parliament in the various seats, so therefore I am going to be prime minister and I can form government. That's our constitution. Now, the issue comes is that you want to win not just 8 seats, but you also want to win more. And we know that since 2000, we could go back in time, but since 2001, for 2 elections, the ULP got 12-3. And then for another 2, they had 8-7. It was a narrow win. And then in the last election of 2020, they were able to have 9-6, an improvement in that process. But the thing seems to be that the ULP has dominated the windward side of the island. And the NDP has now gotten seats in the broader Kingstown area, extending into South Leeward and also the Grenadines. And that's the base. And this election, there seems to be a rethinking of the whole process, how you address that. Because in the case of the ULP, it's still considered that in North Central Windward, in South Central Windward, in South Windward, in Maraqua, and Central Leeward and East St. George, that those are still relatively safe seats. And that for sure, if the ULP can have their supporters come out and any grievances and say they're not going to the polls and so forth, they are secured 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 seats for sure. The big thing has come with the North Windward seat, where there's been a change in the candidate from Montgomery Daniel to Grace Walters. Mm-hmm. And the NDP had seemed as if they were going for the two Norths. By gaining the two Norths, they could flip and they could win by 8-7. That North Windward seat has now proven to be very critical, because with the advent of Grace Walters coming to the fore, it has fortified that seat in most persons. Even though Lady Shavon John has...
Doc, I asked you last week, what is the basis of a lot of these ambitious comments, I listened to you.
Yes. And sometimes the ambitious comment could be done with polls as well. I have not done any polls. But
it's just a feeling on the ground.
It's not a feeling on the ground. I'm an individual who is very close to these particular... I wouldn't say that I'm closer than you, or that you and I could argue, and therefore I whatever you think, I think, because I wouldn't know and you wouldn't know, and we just toss it up. But I think that understanding how the North Windward seat is made up, and the importance of Sandy Bay, and the number of votes in Sandy Bay, and where Sandy Bay has lied over the years, and what it's likely to do, and what it's showing it's going to do, North Windward is going to come home to the ULP in an even stronger way. In other words, it's going to go back into being a relatively safe seat. So, but the question is, that just brings you to 8-7. The thing is, from that article we just spoke about in the Grenadines, the safe bastion of the two Southern Grenadine seat seemed to be threatened. It isn't just because
of the two Grenadine seats.
Yes, of the two Grenadine seats. I'm saying the two Grenadine seats.
I thought you were only dealing with Southern Grenadines. How you reach Northern Grenadines?
My words don't let my words say that I am absolutely including Northern Grenadines. I am going on to say, in the case of the Southern Grenadines, based on that article, it shows that as a region, the Grenadines as a region, Northern and Southern Grenadines, the Southern Grenadines seems to be poised to break ranks with what has been the bastion of NDP in that area. And it may come down to the fact that Terence Oliver, by that article and by many, is perceived as being, lazy, hasn't been around, has not taken the position that even though you are in opposition, you can still mobilize. And that promise of $100,000 to help with the process in the Southern Grenadine, rehabilitation and bursaries and so forth, not occurring, well, maybe it might do. I think is something that shows up significantly. There is, and I think, when you talk about safe seat, there is going to be a major effort on the part of the ULP in that Southern Grenadines in particular, even though the tradition is that safe seats in the area of another party, you don't really do much spending and so forth. I think there is going to be Secondly, in this constituency of South Leeward. I think also in another strange seat, in terms of West Kingstown. I think that
hold on, you're going really fast. So you're saying South Leeward too would
rather than talking individual, time doesn't. You're gonna tell me time is up.
No, I want to make sure that I'm hearing correctly.
You can extend the time. I am saying I'm jointly saying that 2 new candidates in 2 seats, West Kingstown, as well as in South Leeward, because one individual this really is their last term. These individuals, I don't know if that individual in the West Kingstown is 70 yet. I don't know, may not be, maybe late 70s. I don't know if they're 70 yet or so. But and certainly in the you being a Clare Valley lady, you being a South Leeward lady, you could also tell that the current entity is maybe not the right person to represent somebody like you. You understand? Maybe not somebody like you. I can't speak for you. Maybe you could speak for yourself, and that's your opportunity to really speak since you but and I could go through all these other seats, East Kingstown, Central Kingstown. I could go through that. I'm saying that in the end, the ULP is likely to push a very global campaign in far more seats than the NDP. So the NDP is trying to win 7, 8, or 8. That's what they're trying to win. But I think the ULP is going far beyond the 8 of North Windward.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, last week still sticking in my head, but 12-3. But anyways, I have a question for you, Doc.
Me too.
He said they want to tell me who the 3 on the NDP side is, but I'm going to leave him alone with that. Doc, I have a question, right? When it comes to campaign funds and new candidates for constituencies, right? Is it a case, just trying to be mindful of how I phrase the question, but I'm going to try my best. Is it a case where funds are directed more towards those candidates who they think have a greater opportunity of winning their seats? Because I just want to, let me just look at the Southern Grenadines in particular, right? Not necessarily saying it's campaign funds, but there seems to have been a greater push towards having this person, the candidate, at the forefront of the minds of individuals in terms of what it is that they're doing within the constituency, within the Grenadines, within the different islands, within the Southern Grenadines, than I've necessarily seen for other new candidates in other constituencies.
Let me say, I think that, polls are often done. And polls give you an idea as regards what are the likelihood. Now, if there is a new candidate in what has been traditionally a safe seat, there's still going to be, I'm sure, a major effort there. But there would have been a machinery that's also there. It isn't about funds and so forth. It's about machinery. It's about really harnessing, the human resources that are there to be able to organize properly, getting people to house and reach around and so forth. And then the individual, they sometimes have a different appeal and a different approach, and through friends and family, how they come on to the scene. Some people will have an impact a little bit more than others. I think that the Southern Grenadines comes across because you have a good candidate for ULP and you have a candidate from the NDP who is weaker, has been weakened, and therefore it provides an opportunity. That's it.
So the answer was yes or no?
Well, I explained it in a shorter way. You said the time was up, and therefore I needed a yes or no.
I did no such thing, Doc. You would know when I'm telling you time is up. You know what I was telling you.
I went into more detail.
Yeah, but So I believe the answer was yes, right?
Listen, I went into a lot more detail. I'm saying that the circumstances of each seat.
But then if
different.
you're trying to sway certain seats away from what we call safe seats, and in this case it would be safe seats for the NDP, shouldn't there be the same sort of effort visible to persons like myself on the outside, same amount of effort being put into these new candidates?
Yes, I think that there's going to be a massive effort in the career. That's the point I'm making to you.
But elections is just now, we in September.
No, listen what I said to you. I said in the case of the NDP, they will be making their primary effort on about 8 seats. I think that in terms of the ULP, they're going way beyond the 8, and they are going to far more than 8 in order where that concentration.
But this is my thing. How are you going to move from the 8 to the 12 unless you are going to find a way to sway what is right now some of the safe seats for the NDP? How are you going to get those persons or them to sway if that same amount of effort isn't being put into the other new candidates?
Yeah, but I'm saying to you that it is, and the candidates go through their selection, but they would have done a lot of groundwork before. And one of the things is that candidate selection, that's when things really take off in terms of media. You could be promoting candidates a year ago, 2 years ago. Some people say that might have been somebody lighting a fire very early. So you want to peak at a certain time. There's lots of strategies that come into play. You looking at it, you want to see somebody running
I want to see the same sort of visibility
at a pace of 100
I want
meters.
to see the same sort of visibility that is being placed in certain candidates and the others as well. If we're going to talk about a fair playing field.
No, it's not about that. You may want to say that, and I'm pointing out to you, you will look at the NDP, and the NDP will concentrate on about 8, on winning 8. They will have very little effort. The gentleman who's running against the prime minister, they'll have a few meetings out there. You understand? Do you know his name? Do you know that chap's name?
The person run against the Neptune, Chieftain Neptune.
Okay, right. At least you know his name.
Hey, don't try that now.
At least you know his name. I should have asked Dianna. Dianna, I'm sure would have known. Yeah, Dianna would have known. But the point I was trying to get out, that he is not an individual who is going to win, and therefore the effort on the back.
All right, so I would not necessarily look at. I would not necessarily look at the.
Why isn't the NDP giving him all the credit as a candidate and pouring all the stuff?
I would not necessarily look at the PMs, the seat in particular. Listen, there are other seats that come to mind. I started off
by saying I start with the United States. I say that in New York and California, the Republicans don't pump a lot of stuff in those states because those states are democratic states. And in the case of Missouri and Tennessee, similarly, the Democrats don't seem to pump a lot of funds into that. This is something that's been thought out in almost every single country of the world, right? I think you're asking, it should be fair and it should be even distribution and so forth. You basically would not last as a political pundit if you were really looking to do that. I'm saying you have to have a strategy. You have to have a strategy. Somebody who's running a race, Miss Maloney running a race, she would have a strategy. How does she go out? How does she finish?
Okay. No, we had a call. I was going to take the call. Yeah, no, I won't last as a pundit, but I won't last as a pundit for many reasons.
But you are punditing. You are punditing to some degree. And I am saying to you
but the reason why I asked the question is that I want to know what is the basis of you saying that they are going to get an additional 4 when I'm not necessarily seeing the same amount of effort being put into some persons, as I've seen it as an example with the Southern Grenadines.
You know what I'm saying to you? I'm saying that it tailors off. In the case of you need to just win by 1 vote to win. You understand? That's highlighted a lot. And I am putting it to you that in certain seats, be surprised. Be very surprised. Because I think internally, the NDP is beginning to infight, fall apart. Their supporters are saying we are lazy. When you compare the leadership,
were these people actually supporters, or were they just persons who critique political parties?
there are people who have been advocating, and sometimes when you put out your views and you think your views should be heard, people ain't listening to you enough. So therefore, but I am saying that it starts.
I find, you know what, Doc? I find sometimes when persons who, let's say they're social media persons, they critique, let's say they critique the ULP, the automatic assumption is that they're NDP. And when they critique NDP, you're saying that their support for the party has fallen apart.
I'm not talking about those.
Okay.
I'm not talking about those. I'm talking about persons who are well known. I am saying to you.
And you know for sure that they were supporters of the NDP?
I know this.
We
know this. However, what they're saying is that NDP is going to lose because their leader is lazy. Their leader doesn't have the gumption. Their leader doesn't have it. And that is coming through. That feeling is on the ground. And whereas you may have your criticism of Ralph Gonsalves, when he compares, what we've been doing this morning is talking about each seat and the candidate. And there's another level, the leader. In the same way like Jamaica, you have the leader of the JLP and you have Mark Golding and so forth. People compare leadership too. And then there's all sorts of other factors that come into play. But we don't have the opportunity to go through all of them. But it goes beyond the candidate who's winning. There are some coattails. There are other individuals like the leader who can carry them. And Friday doesn't seem to have that level of coattail like James Mitchell did. One, on the mainland, and two, in the Southern Grenadines. I'm not saying that he may not win. He's not going to win his seat in the Northern Grenadines. And persons in Northern Grenadines may be upset with me for saying that, who you support ULP, but that may be the case. But in terms of his impact, his promise of $100,000.
Are we going back to this one point? So everything is just going to boil down to this $100,000 thing?
I'm saying, sometimes I am saying to you, you don't understand how important it is. You have not kept your promise.
You know what?
As a leader, for me, you have not been able to.
There are times when I want to
money.
respond, but anytime if I respond, and people are going to say, "Oh, she dead NDP," but I just leave it because the reason why I say right because
father is a hardcore ULP person.
And my father is many things that I am also not. Mom and daddy, but that don't mean nothing.
Your father was telling me. I was talking to him a couple of days. He said, "Boy, I love my daughter and so forth." I like her the way she puts over things and so forth. So you have a special relationship with your dad and so forth. I love that.
Yeah, my father would recognize many traits of my mother in me, so my father sees it. All right, but anyhow, don't try swimming. No, hold on. Let me go back to my point. You are making this point with regards to Dr. Friday and this one promise, and persons might be holding on to it. But persons might also be holding on to whatever it is that, let's say, might have happened under the ULP regime for maybe they might have picked for the last 5 years, or maybe they could have gone before that they could have also held on to.
You're right.
So I don't understand why it is that we just hopping on this one thing.
Somebody in South Leeward, the 100,000 for bursaries of people in the Grenadines would not be a big factor. But somebody in the Southern Grenadines,
and somebody on mainland might have an issue with something that the ULP has done that they are holding on to. So here we talk about.
You were the person who pointed out, you've noticed that in the Southern Grenadines, there is a big effort. Mm-hmm. You pointed out. I'm saying, yes, there's a big effort because it seems to be a seat that's going to break the bastion of what is there in the Grenadines. You interpreting, I was saying, it's also the Northern Grenadines. No, I wasn't saying that.
No, it sounded like something that you said.
The Grenadines as a region. Remember
you said Grenadines. You can't group all them together.
The extended Kingstown seat. and the Grenadines. That's where, and if I said, Labour was...
You know
Windward
for sure
side
when you talk about Grenadines, you
and
have to
Central
separate them. It's
Huh?
Northern and Southern when we're voting.
What's
Or
that?
when persons are voting, you have to separate them.
No, but I'm saying...
You
if
can't
understand
just say
what I'm saying,
Grenadines.
that
You know
bastion,
you know better.
That bastion has existed over the years. Ever since the Unit Labour have never won that seat. But I'm pointing out to you that you have pointed out that there's an effort being made in the Southern Grenadines. And that I'm also pointing to that in addition, NDP has also become weakened in the Southern Grenadines because of what the leader of the opposition from the Northern Grenadines basically has not done, and so forth. And that same factor may not affect another Central Kingston or whatever the case might be, but it's affecting the Southern Grenadines. There are other factors that would affect South Leeward, Central Kingston, East Kingston, and so forth.
All right, so good folks. We are heading. We have to end. We were way over time, but this is a typical Monday morning when it comes to Doc and us, right? What am I going to say now? Right. So we are heading on out. I noticed that several persons were calling. We can take this back up in the Talk to Us, a segment around 9:25. But for right now, we are stepping out of this segment.
I'm sure Dianna agree with me. I'm sure I'm sure of it.
You see why we just go over time? We're heading out.